Welcome into the Where You're Going podcast. I'm your host, John Liddle. Thank you so much for being here. We believe at the Where You're Going podcast, it's not about where you've been. It's not about where you are right now. It is about where you're going. It's about who you're becoming. And we've gotten so much incredible feedback from our first few shows. And thank you so much, whether you're listening on Spotify, listening on Apple Podcasts, the podcast provider of your choice, or watching on YouTube. We've had incredible feedback. And please keep it coming. Reach out to me directly, whereyourgoingpod@gmail.com. Comment, rate, review. This is what helps other people find the show. That's what helps other people find hope as we continue to grow this show over time. And we've got an incredible guest on the show today. Grant McCasland is his name. He is the head coach of the Texas Tech men's basketball team, and he assumed that job after an incredible 6 years at the helm at the University of North Texas. Year one, all he did was come in there, and for a team that was really poor the year before, led them to a CBI championship, followed that up with another really solid season, and then what would have been a trip to the NCAA tournament, frankly, before COVID shut that down. They did end up going to the NCAA tournament the following season, knocking off one of the top seeds in Purdue the following year, and then a couple straight years in the NIT, and they won the National Invitation Tournament this past year in Vegas. Incredible for the University of North Texas. Really hasn't had a lot of sustained success in men's basketball like this. This is one of the best stories in the history of North Texas athletics. And that's why he earned the opportunity to step into the Big 12 and become the next head coach of the Texas Tech men's basketball team. And I would not put it past him for another incredible, quick turnaround. Not to put any pressure on my good friend, but it's just one of those things. Wherever Coach McCasland goes, he brings this presence with him where he wants excellence, there's no doubt, but he's about relationships as well. He's just one of those people that truly cares and knows he has to care for others in order for life to go the way that he envisions it, whether that be with his family, Cece, and his 4 kids, or whether that be with his basketball teams as well. And we're going to get into all of it. There's so much you can take from this because we're not going to talk really any X's and O's. We're going to talk team building, but we're going to talk life. So what is that team that you need to build? That's what I want you to be thinking about. Is it your family? Do you have an actual sports team that you're coaching? Do you have a group of people in the office that you're responsible for in any way, or just a friend group? I think all of us, when we're our best selves, we're leaders in some capacity, and we bring culture wherever we go. I know that. So let's get some lessons in culture from one of the best hearts out there, Grant McCasland. And I am so glad to have one of my friends, a guy that I just look up to so much, the head coach of the Texas Tech men's basketball team. Grant McCasland is on the show. Thank you so much for the time, Coach.
John, what a treat, man. From the first time I interacted with you, I knew this guy was special. But when I heard you sing the national anthem in the Super Pit and the whole place went berserk, I was like, this dude is more than what I thought, too, man. Remarkable. Cool to be here with you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And, from the first time I interacted with you, I knew you were the dude as well. And, I just think back to the day you took the North Texas job, sitting down with you for about 10 minutes, and you just wowed me with what you had to say. And it's not for those that don't know you, there are some basketball coaches where you can't get past the surface with these guys or gals, and no offense to them whatsoever. It's just they're guarded, and that's not you. And you're about people and you're about relationships, and that is what I love about you. So that's why I wanted to have you on the show. So sound good to you? Can we talk about those things?
Let's do it.
All right, man. I just relate back to what I've seen firsthand you be able to do, and that's create culture. Take a basketball team, in your case, from one place to another. When you are stepping into a spot, and you're doing so right now in Lubbock with Texas Tech, and trying to establish your culture, the culture that you believe in, what are those first steps?
Man, I think listening to people and hearing their heart and hearing what they want to do with their life, what their dreams are. And I mean that. I think the easiest thing to do is share what you think they should do. But really, I think really tried to connect with our team, with our players, with the staff to find out where they are in the journey, what they want, what they're looking for. And usually people will tell you, and you'll get a good perspective. And I know in life, especially new situations, and we've had the opportunity as a coaching staff and as a family to be a part of 6 kind of new programs like this. And the first part, I think, is trying to get to know the people. And earlier in my career, I tried to fast forward and maybe move some things prior to the timing that was needed. And just to give an example, one specific one was just not allowing my heart this last year, leaving North Texas, to be like already at Tech, even though it wasn't solidified. But how do you pour your heart into those people you're with? And I think what it allowed us to do, stepping into the locker room, and I'll give you like the last 24 hours. The last 24 hours was like, look, I didn't have one conversation with anyone at Texas Tech, a part of the team or the program, basketball specific, until we had won the championship NIT at North Texas. And in my earlier career, I would have been like, well, let's try to figure out this assistant spot. Let's try to figure out if he's going to stay, can he go? Will we get him? And like, you can't have a divided heart. I really do believe that. And so my real heart behind initial steps in this was, one, to go to the very end in regards to everything that was the responsibility that I'd agreed to, which was pour our heart into winning a championship with our team at North Texas. And I was a small part of that. I mean, people want to give the head coach, I think, too much credit. I mean, if you look at that team and that staff, I mean, those guys were the reason why we stayed together. And then ultimately in pursuing this, then you get to step into this locker room, and these guys here at Texas Tech knew that I didn't try to skip steps. I wasn't trying to recruit them before our season was done. And then I think they can have that same expectation. And then when I have individual meetings, which I had in this office, I mean, we didn't go to bed till 3 or 4 in the morning. Then I woke up at 5 in the morning in a cold sweat going, what in the world was about to happen after winning the championship? And then got our family on a private jet at 9 a.m. and had to get all those details ironed out. Got on a jet at 9 a.m. and landed in Lubbock and had a team meeting and a player meeting until 2 in the morning that next day. It was just, but what it gives you the ability to do, I think, is to speak honestly and openly about what your heart is for them and how you're for them. And now that you're going to want what's best for them and try to get them to a place where they can reach their dreams and their goals. So you asked a great question and I answered it too long, but really I think it's like starts with listening, but I don't think you can skip steps. And I think you got to love people with where you're at and what you've committed to. And that's the best way to do it.
We can take so much out of what you just said, and I do want to, just highlight that that's one thing I wanted to talk about anyway, is about leaving well. Whatever we do, it could be, a job, moving one job to another. It could be, honestly, a relationship. I mean, that's obviously very, very difficult to do, but leaving well and leaving with honor is so big, and it's one of those things that personally I can tell you is going to cement your legacy with, the banner behind me here, the fact that you did leave well. But that can extrapolate to every part of life, can it?
Yeah, it really can. And let's be clear about this part too. Like I make some significant mistakes all the way through. So like in no way, shape or form am I trying to tell you I got this figured out. I do, in my heart of hearts, trust that the Lord being the strength of hope that I have. Like, my hope isn't in my own decision making. I wake up every day and pray and ask God to give me an understanding of what he wants for me in these moments, right? And my hope is in Jesus. It's not in my own decision making. So I want to be clear on that part of it, and then try to surround ourselves with people that help keep us going in those directions. And if there's one thing I feel like is a priority in these relationships and finishing well, is trying to do everything I can within my power to surround ourselves with people that have like-minded hearts, so that you can walk through those things with people. And people are there's gonna be disagreements, there's gonna be times where maybe you don't see it the same way, but if you can have a greater purpose that's the same, then I think you can maybe even walk through separation in moments and have some understanding. That part I'm so thankful for, because coaching with Ross Hodge, and then some of the guys that came with us, the Matt Bryers, the Achoki Moikobus, that Clay Wilsons that came with us. And then there's some guys that are still at North Texas that do a phenomenal job. Andre Shaw, Louis Alafid. I mean, there's just a real, I think, desire to see them continue to succeed that's real. Like, I mean, that's the greater, I think, part of all this that you can walk away from, is you see, I think they have better days. And I genuinely think they're going to be in a better place, and they're going to do greater things than what we were a part of, which is, I think, the greatest part of this is, like, how can you continue to build with people and love people in a way that continues to allow them to be at their best. And Ross Hodge is one of a kind, and obviously Jared Mosley and the whole crew there, just really excited about the future of North Texas athletics and basketball. And, you know, I think those relationships and the like-minded hearts to try to be for each other is really, I think, what allows you to move forward well.
And I see that you are about the best in your, co-coaches, your assistants, whatever you want to call them, your players, whether they fall in line with what you're doing necessarily in that program at a certain time or not. You are about their best and not trying to get something out of them, but give to them. But it takes, Coach, it takes a certain amount of just strength in who you are as a person, and just belief that you don't have to control these things like your assistant coaches or your players in order to get the results you want. Were you always that way? Was that ever a struggle for you? And how do you go beyond that when you do want to control the strings a little bit?
Hey, that's an everyday fight, John. What you talking about, man? That's every day. That's how you wake up. I think there's a lot of great models. I think obviously there's the temptation of, let's make this about me every day, and like there is the real component to how do you give and love those people around you. And then I do find myself at times trying to go, wait, this will benefit me. So I'm trying to position myself, just like maybe it's trying to protect myself, going like, let's get this out of it for my good. And that's where I think genuinely, like, a relationship with God gives you that perspective of direction that you need. And relationships are about like the ups and downs of it, and how do you continue. And I think you said it earlier, like, how do you move forward? And I think that there is an understanding and a humility that goes with it. You don't have all the answers, and to have a heart to learn, and to have a heart to grow, to have a heart to apologize. I think one of my favorite stories that's an example of that, and someone just asked me in an interview earlier today, like, who's my hero? And without a doubt, it's my father. Who was just a major go-getter all his life, multiple businesses, ministries, just always working to help people. And he had a stroke when I was an assistant at Baylor, and it really set him back significantly. I mean, doesn't move the same well, can't communicate very well, and really went from being a nonstop 24/7 motor to, like, just trying to do the basic things in life. Like he'll call me from Whataburger, and while he's in the drive-through line, and he's trying to mumble it to me because he doesn't speak very well, and then I don't know where he is, and then I finally realize he wants me to order for him. So I say, we need the number one with no onions and mustard, and so I love that about my father. But we were playing in a tournament, the ESPN tournament in Orlando at North Texas, and it was Thomas Bell's senior year. And Thomas, I was all over him. We had lost to Kansas in the first game, and we should have beat Miami in the second game. We had a big lead on them, and we lost the game. And I was very intense. And you've seen me coach. I was very intense. And ironic thing about those two teams, they both played in the Elite Eight that year. That was the year Kansas won the national championship. So it turned out to be two pretty good
Absolutely.
teams. But
yes.
The expectation for us, and we knew this, was that we wanted to win. We ended up beating Drake in the last game. And came home, and as we were going home, I had a long text. My dad actually came to the tournament. He stayed in our hotel room. It was really neat. He came to all the practices and games. He was sitting right behind the bench, and he sent me a long text message. I'm talking, the one where you have to scroll through it, because my dad can't communicate it very well, but he can get it on words on paper, and basically said that I needed to apologize to Thomas, that he didn't think I was helping him. He thought I was actually not helping him by the way I was coaching him. And he said it in so many words. And so that very day I got this long text message, and I knew I was in the wrong. I called Thomas Bell into the office, and we're sitting there and we're hugging, and he says some things to me that he needed to get off his chest, and I was able to communicate that I was sorry, that I should have done things better. And we hugged each other with tears, and there's a lot of hope and love. And he said, Coach, I love you. I know we're going to be great, and I'll help you, and I got to coach you better, and I got to do a better job of encouraging you. And that team ended up winning the most games in school's history. They were 16-2. We were 16-2, which is the most conference wins since Coach Calipari was at Memphis back in the day when he had a really good team. That team was special, but really what it was I was messing it up. And I needed to apologize and change, and it took my dad's strength to, in a very gracious way, send me a text message that wasn't condemning. It was like, hey, man, I know you're better than this, and this is what I would hope you would consider, that there's a better way to help Thomas get better. And so through an apology to Thomas, and then I went in front of the whole team and apologized to the whole team about how I felt like I could do a better job coaching Thomas and help our team. And really, I think it's surrounding yourself with people that'll tell you the truth, but also being able to admit you don't know it and you need help. And I needed help. The result then was our team having the best record in school's history, but it wasn't like I was doing it so that our team could have the best record in school's history. It was, the approach was that I was in the wrong, and I needed to tell Thomas that I loved him, and I needed to be a better example of how to be a better friend and a better teammate. And ultimately, I think that's what allowed our team to have success, because it allowed a deeper level of trust and commitment that I was for Thomas and that he was for me. And he was the best player on that team. Our leading scorer, maybe second leading scorer, led us in rebounding, led us in assists, led us in steals, led us in turnovers, led us in blocks, led us in just about everything, and I really put a lot of pressure on him. But that day was, I think, a monumental day of humility, that I didn't have it all figured out and needed the guidance from my father, and to be honest with our team.
Coach, that is so good. And I got tears in my eyes. I got goosebumps just listening to that story, because, I just got to thinking about how leadership and virtue is not getting it right all the time. Like, none of us get it right all the time. It's being quick to repent. It's being, quick to change your mind and see when you are in the wrong. And I think that, no matter what stage of life you're in, whether you're a kid and, you need to apologize to your parent, whether you're an adult, a parent, and you need to apologize to your kid, or whether you're the leader of an organization, we can take so much from that. And Coach, I really appreciate that. And that brings me to like your family. Your culture is so good. You insist on that with your teams. How do you and Cece run culture in your family?
Whew. It's an adventure. We had four We had 4 kids under the age of 5 years old.
Luckily,
So
they
it
don't
was
all stay 5 years old or under forever. Luckily, they keep getting older.
yeah, they start to chart their own way, and you got to figure out how to get them in cars, which is we're adventuring into right now, which is a wild journey. There's a real heart to try to love each other, Cece and I think that's the priority in family, as you know, is like how do you love each other well, and I need help with that, I honestly do. I mean, if there's anything that I've needed more help and asked for more, asked for forgiveness more, I would think it's in our relationship. And I think counselors, I think for us specifically, I think prayer together. We open God's word and we try to have a direction for us that is not what's best for us individually, which we talked about as an everyday journey, but I think that is where all of this has the greatest source of strength for our kids. And then is if we can love each other well. My wife's amazing. I love her because we're at Texas Tech right now. I'm in the office, but we really got close during this time when I first started working here. But I watched her play soccer and in college. I watched her play in high school, which was awesome because she was the best player. She was the MVP of the district, led the team in scoring goals. But then you get to college and you learn a new role. Well, she was a defender, so she was charged with marking the other team's best player. And I went and watched her play in college, and like literally she was the player that would get in a fight with the other team's best player, not because she was trying to fight him, but they were trying to fight her because she was so scrappy and so competitive, and just didn't know that she was that frustrating to play against because she was.
You want one of those on your side, right? You know,
Yeah,
that you need her on your side.
That's why we're so close. We're super hyper competitive, which I don't know if is great for a marriage, but it works for our marriage. But like that's where she is. Like she just is all in. She can't ever, like, I love this about her because I can kind of look at everything as through the best lens. Like I'm always trying to see the best in it, and she can see the best in it, but she will tell me if she's like, this isn't right. And I can be like, we can make it right. We'll figure it out. And she's like, nope, not right. So for us specifically, I think it's beautiful because I can kind of keep moving everything forward. And then she can kind of say like, this is where I need your attention now. So like, I will tell you this, like she'll call me in the middle of practice and be like, Beckett and Jet need your attention now. And I'm like, here we go. I'm like, let's get this on, would you like for me to come home, fellas? And they're like, nope, Dad, you don't need to come home. I'm like, okay, can we fit, so I think it's like, there's this beauty that comes with knowing kind of who each other are, but there's also, I think we have to make each other a priority if this is going to work. Right. And if our job's going to work and our family's going to work, specifically our relationship with our kids and how they see us, I think they have to really see, and they do see us getting some arguments together, and we don't try to hide those. I do think we try to be genuine in our lives and tell them when we've made mistakes and how she's very good at this. I can kind of gloss over it a little more, and she will like go sit in the room with them, and she will like, bedtime's a huge deal for us. Is like when we go to bedtime, we really spend a lot of time together. I love dropping the kids off at school. I love that time to be with them. We actually scheduled our practices in the mornings, and I like the way the format works, but really I think it's for our families and for us to allow us to be great husbands and fathers. And you ask about our culture and our team, and I just think it honestly has to start with my relationship with Cece and how I love her well, and I don't do it perfectly, and I make a lot of mistakes, but I'm so thankful for her because she is the rock and the strength at which I'm able to do all the things that we do as basketball coaches, because I just know that she's so for us and she's so dedicated to loving our family, but also loving our team and our family with the basketball programs.
And there's no doubt that people see that, and I just love that, whenever you guys are on national TV, the producers behind the scenes, they catch that. They know where Cece is. They know where your kids are, and there's just amazing. That's, I feel good for you. I feel good for the team. I loved, seeing you guys win the NIT. It's amazing, but when I see the joy that it brings your family, that is all in. I I mean, that brings me joy as well. It's got to increase the joy that you have, because it's not just about Grant McCasland and, notching a win and getting a title and cutting down, a net. It's about your family finding joy as well in it.
Yeah, this profession is hard enough. Well, everybody's got an opinion on it. I actually love that part of it. I think there's a passion that comes with that gives you a real sense of this is bigger than just something that I'm doing, right? It's all of us deal. But I think including the family and our family and my wife specifically, and how that looks. It doesn't look perfect, but like how much can we make that a part of what we do and make sure that happens? That actually started with Larry Hayes, who was the baseball coach here, and my dad modeled it. But like when we were here as director of operations, and Cece and I's marriage, actually our relationship went from being friends to dating to being engaged. I was talking to somebody earlier. We went to Idalou for our first date, and it was the apple orchard here north of town. It was like the coolest place, and we stopped by there when my daughter was in the regional cross country meets out here. We would go by it every year, and it's actually, they're starting it back up, which is awesome. But when we were here, we just learned from Larry Hayes, and like, this is how you model, like you just involve your family in everything. Like that's how you do it at this level if you want to do it. And I think there's multiple benefits. It's not just a benefit for us. I think it's like your team sees the family model and how you love each other and what that looks like, and in a real way, like we don't really hide it, and you just kind of try to make sure that that's part of including other families. And it's gotten more difficult over the years because the schedules of our kids have just, like, sometimes my family can't even come to a game because we got somebody else's game going on at the same time. So it's never been perfect, but it's like that's what we try to do consistently. And I think it not only gives me hope and gives greater purpose to this, but I think it gives a great perspective of why we do what we do as a program, why we do what we do as a team, and how you love each other well in a way that you're for each other, that's not tied to basketball. Like I'm not going to love Cece because she can do whatever task needs to be done for our family any different. That's the hard part, right? Like if a guy scores or doesn't score, like how can you love him and support him in a way that's real? And like that's a real part of, I think, building a team, is that there's an unconditional love that you love people with, and that you show respect and really appreciate and try to grow even people that maybe can't impact the games. Like how do you love the managerial staff that we have? Like those are the most important people, I think, around our program. And I genuinely do that. Like I love that. I think that's been the separator. A guy named Jared Hollis was a hugely impactful guy on our program. And he started out as a student manager, and he just is on the end of the bench and like won 4 championships with us. So I just think that's the bigger picture, is like, how do you put real value on people, not for just what they can do for you, and because of who they are and where you see them going as young men and young women.
I just love that. You've talked about hope several different times, and in thinking about hope leads. We talk about where there's no vision, the people perish. Where there's no vision, there's no hope. When you're taking over a program, or trying to lead your family from one spot to the next, how do you lead with hope but do it in reality? I tend to be sometimes kind of a happy-go-lucky guy, Coach, and I just don't feel like I'm very good sometimes at, all right, part of this sucks, and I need to be honest about that. I need to be real about that, but then have optimism as well, and then believe in myself and believe in those around me that we can go to a different spot. So when you're creating vision, how do you do it with that balance?
Well, first of all, this has been a work in progress. So by no stretch am I trying to give you something and I'm like, do this and it works. It doesn't work like that. As you know, there has to be, I do think there has to be a prayerful component of like your purpose of where you are and maybe not what other people want for you, maybe not what you even think is something that would be cool, but like really pouring your heart into something that you believe in. I think that's really a huge component in who you do it with. I think those are the believe, and we talked about it at North Texas, believe, serve, compete, but like believe and how do you give, and those parts of it are really important. And I think I look at maybe how we built our teams, and it's just never been perfect. But when we were able to identify, like, we want to compete for a national championship in 2000, and actually originated here in Midland when I was 27 years old, was my first opportunity to be a head coach. And we all know this, when you finally get the leadership position, everybody knows what you want to do. Then you get there and you actually get to do it. It's a little different. It's not as easy as it's like, we should just have always done this. And then you get there and you're like, well, maybe he doesn't want to do that. So how do you get someone to do something they don't want to do? That first year we made it to the national tournament, which is one of 16 teams. We won a regional championship. We got there. We lost, and we beat the number one team in the country in the first round, lost to a team on a tip dunk at the buzzer. And originally I was just happy to be there. But then after that experience, the moment we lost, I was like, we could have won a national championship. Like, really? Like, why wasn't that my expectation? So I left that going, okay, as long as I'm going to coach, let's let this be the expectation. Like, this is how you set the standard for how you approach it. And whether we had the talent or whether we had the resources to, from a probability perspective, to do it. Like at Arkansas State, when we took over in North Texas, I told those guys we're going to compete for a national championship. So then at least the standard is what it is, right? Like, you can actually point to something and say, okay, if this is what we say we want to do, then this is how you have to approach it. And it didn't mean that everyone understood that, but that's how we felt like we wanted to model every day after. And then my expectation being that I had to be honest and say what I wasn't doing to meet those expectations. And I also was comfortable, and this is where I think this is, when you're convicted about something, then you can go to someone in honesty and say, like, you're not meeting the standard, and these are the consequences for not doing it. But that, I do think that there's a component to this, that I do have a passion for what we're doing, and I do feel like this is where I'm supposed to be, so I can step into it with confidence. But if I didn't believe in it, I couldn't do it. And I think that's kind of where this I don't think if you can believe in something, you can really say things that like are from the depths of who you are in honesty. I think you can kind of always go like, well, maybe that's okay. Let's just let this go. But if I knew that the standard was winning national, how can you let that go? Right? But then it always is pointed toward, and I'll give you an example. Like my first 2 years at North Texas, we would show after games all the clips of the turnovers that we made. Okay, so that would be the mistakes. We would show it to the team. 17 turnovers, 17 clips, and we would learn from them. Year 3, when we won the conference championship, we switched. We showed them in the game, if there was a turnover or a play that didn't work well, we would show the actual opposite. Maybe it was one of our guys or maybe someone else did that would show what to do instead of showing what not to do. And so a big component with this moving forward was not the condemnation they would feel, even though it felt good as a coach to go, don't do this. It was more about like, what direction do we want them to go? What do we want them to do, as opposed to what do we want to try to keep them from doing? And then you start to look for opportunities to actually improve the team, or how do you fit, and not say, well, you can't shoot, so don't shoot. You say, well, let's make sure that you're cutting on this situation to score, or cutting to pass, because cutting gives us the best chance to win. Then it points toward a national championship and your role in what we want you to do, as opposed to what we don't want you to do. And so I think that was a big shift in my mentality of how do you believe in somebody and have the expectation for them, but don't live in the condemnation of what they're not doing well, but give them the hope of the direction of this is what you can do to help the team. So let's do these things. And it was pivotal. I mean, we went 14-4, and that was Javion Hamlet's first year. He ended up being Conference Player of the Year and Conference Student Athlete of the Year of all sports. And we started out that season, I think, like 3-5 with a losing record. Then we ended up 14-4, and we had the best offense we ever had. We had the most conference wins in school's history, and that was the year that, if it weren't for COVID, I think we would have played in the NCAA tournament. Because we were the number 1 seed going into that conference tournament, and it got cut short. But I think that's kind of the mindset, right? Is like trying to give people the vision of what they do well and trying to encourage them in those things and their passions and in their purposes, as opposed to the condemnation of maybe what someone isn't great at.
Absolutely. And so that, it just covers all of it. It covers the positivity aspect of it. It covers the hopeful aspect of it. And, honestly, I'm thinking about that for my kids right now when they're doing something they're not supposed to do, instead of, hey, don't do that. Let's do this instead. In this house, we honor our sisters, and here's how we do that. Coach, I learned so much today. I know our listeners, our viewers did as well. I can't thank you enough for your friendship, your just being personable with me over the years. It means a lot, and I know a lot of us got a lot out of this conversation today. So thank you so much.
John, thanks for having me, man. Much love, dude. Appreciate you.
That is incredible stuff from Grant McCasland. Just so much to take out of that. I loved him talking about his family and how his relationship with Cece has to be number one, them loving each other, them respecting each other. I like how, he wants to go for it, and she is the one to pull back. And I didn't want to make this all about sports, but if that transition from North Texas to Texas Tech, if she would have said, Grant, I just don't think this is right for our family or right for you, he would have listened. And we've got to have those people in our life. It could be a spouse. Hopefully it is our spouse if that's the kind of relationship we're in. But hopefully we have those people in our lives that we listen to. And he talked about his dad. He listened to his dad, and that we submit to and say, I respect you enough to know that you are for me, that you love me, and that you're not leading me astray. And even though, it's my name on the marquee, and I know Coach McCasland tries to not make it about himself, but it's his name on the marquee. There's no question. It's his name that the checks get written to. Even though it's Grant McCasland's name on the marquee, he still can submit to the people in his life that know him the best. So, man, just an incredible conversation, and I'm so blessed to know that man. The Where You're Going podcast is all over social media, and of course you can find out more at whereyourgoingpod.com. Remember, it's not about where you've been, it's not about where you are right now. It is about where you're going. Thanks so much for being here this week. We'll see you next week on the Where You're Going podcast.